Are you an adventurer looking to take your hunt to the next level? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to East Meets West Hunt with your host, Bo Martonic.
Welcome to another episode of the East Meets West Hunt podcast. I'm sitting here, well, not really here, but across the computer from my good buddy Clint Casper. What's going on, Clint?
Well, what's going on, my man? Happy to finally have this up and running and be on one. Been talking about it for a long time, and been pretty excited to jump on with you. I think I was one of the first to know about this idea, so it's been pretty cool to see you kind of get it off the ground and get it up in the air.
Yeah, man, you were one of the first ones I told the idea to, and you're all pumped up about it, and we had some pretty good ideas. So I'm glad that finally get to have you on here.
Yeah, I can't wait for it to make $1 million, and then I take 75 and give you your 250, and then life will be pretty swell. So yeah, it's gonna work out great, I believe.
Yeah, I'm thinking by like October or so we should be in that realm. So if I was you, I'd let work know you're about done. So. Well,
I already put in my 6 months notice. I figure I'll finish the year out. I mean, at least be a good Samaritan and, take him till December 31st. But pretty much from that point on, I'm pretty much just going to be a cool cat and a badass that runs and has part ownership in East Meets West. So that's kind of where I'm at with life. I mean, that's about all I got. Really.
And you take like long walks in the mountains with your bow and, fun things like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
like camping trips.
Anyone can go out. Yeah, anyone can go out and kill big mule deer and big elk, but how many of you actually just walk around? I mean, that's kind of my forte.
Yeah, I mean, that's we have a little bit in common there, I think.
Yeah.
So anyways, if everyone hasn't gotten, used to your personality yet and how you and I interact with each other, that's about how this podcast is going to go. So, Clint, how about you introduce yourself a little bit for anyone that doesn't know who you are and where you're from?
Yeah. Freelance bow hunting writer, by choice, county highway, engineer worker for a day job, and, fourth generation farmer. Grain farm and beef, and did dairy my whole life up until a few years ago. We sold the dairy cows and just went straight into grain and beef. But I grew up hunting and fishing right here in Northeast Ohio, and just fell in love with hunting, mainly bow hunting, from, I don't know, probably about 9 or 10. I think it's whenever I really took a big interest into bow hunting and got kind of serious about it. And always been in love with the outdoors and the magazine end of things. Not that I don't think video stuff's cool, but I've just always been really intrigued with the guys that can come across on paper and with a pen, or typing on, a computer and actually put you in the moment. I just think it's, I've always thought that was really a big talent and something that I wanted to, always dreamed about doing, always wanted to do. And, I've been I'll be 30 in November, going to hit the big 3-0.
Oh, geez.
I know. Don't label me a grandpa yet, but it's, I've already bought my walker, so we're getting close, but no, I've always wanted to be a bow hunting writer. I mean, I kind of started when I was in college, just some small stuff, and it's kind of grown into, it's taken me about 10 years to kind of get to where I'm at now. And by no means do I think that I'm a big time writer or anything, but, I've gotten in some magazines and I'm kind of getting a few things to swing my way a little bit. And I do the blog for Working Class Bow Hunter, and I've gotten to meet a lot of cool people and podcast and, do a lot of cool hunts with a lot of cool guys that are a lot bigger and way cooler than myself. But that's kind of where I'm at. I've got me and my girlfriend Danielle, we've got 2 little boys. Jackson, he's 7. He killed his first buck with a bow a few years ago when he was 5. And our littlest one, Easton, he just turned 2 in May. He's probably going to be the death of us both. He, I'm going to say, takes after his mother and doesn't like to listen, is really bullheaded and kind of has a mind of his own. But yeah, no, anyway, so, we're always, always busy with them, but looking forward to doing a lot more hunting and adventures with them and whatnot. But yeah, just pretty much a small town kid with big time dreams of always getting in the business and writing for the big leagues and getting in the big magazines and whatnot, and just kind of still trying to live that out. And then, I met you, and it's just like life's just turned around. I mean, now all of a sudden, I've got like Wayne Gretzky wanting me to go elk hunting with him and show him how to kill one. I've only killed one elk, and then I've got Carrie Underwood who like stalks me all the time, and I have to I haven't blocked her because I don't want to block her, but I'm almost to that point where it's like, hey, I've got an old lady. Like, you're going to have to do your own thing. I don't know what to tell you, but yeah, I mean, life's pretty much changed ever since I met you. So I went from like sort of cool to like even cooler. I mean, I guess. Yeah, it's kind of where I'm at now. Just living the East meets West dream.
like that one time in elk camp when Carrie and Taylor Swift came over and we just had a good time. But anyways, Clint, so thanks for introducing yourself there. And growing up in Eastern Ohio, you're obviously a pretty hardcore whitetail hunter, right?
Yeah, definitely. Whitetails were my biggest passion. Still are. I mean, I've fallen in love with the out west spot and stock and glass style of bow hunting, but I mean, whitetails are always going to have that special place in my heart. And pretty fortunate. We got some really good public ground around, and then I've got access to a lot of good farm country, a lot of private stuff that we either own or lease. So I kind of got best of both worlds. But yeah, I mean, we're pretty lucky. I mean, pretty much across the board in Ohio. I mean, there's a lot of big deer and a lot of big deer to chase around. And our season runs constant, from September clear into the first week of February. So we got a long season, and just gives us a lot of chances to, to get those tags filled and get out and hunt and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, it's been fun growing up in Ohio. I mean, the turkey and deer populations are really good, and there's just a lot of cool features that come with living here. And that kind of cut my teeth on hunting deer and turkeys with my bow. And then that's kind of grown into I've migrated west, and fallen in love with that. But yeah, I definitely cut my teeth on whitetails. So, I mean, I'm always going to be a whitetail nut. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, you say that you're a whitetail nut, but in the last couple of years that I've known you, it's you've taken some pretty impressive whitetails with your bow in Ohio, and what I'm specifically thinking about was in 2016, I believe. Is that when you shot extra?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So what was the 191 inch whitetail?
Yeah, he was 191 gross, and I mean, I'll be honest, I don't officially score any of my deer. I'm not that I don't like to put a tape on them, and just for my own quote unquote shits and giggles, kind of see what they score. But I'm more into, if a deer walks in and it's mature buck and it gets my heart racing, I don't care if it's 130 inch 8-point that's 23 inches wide, or if it's a buck like extra with kickers, stickers, main beams, extra main beams, and dark chocolate horns that goes 191. I kind of base it off the whole gut factor and the gut feeling, and and that was a deer that I'd let walk the year before, and he would have probably been in that high 60s, low 70s if you're going to judge off of score type of deal. And I knew he was going to blow up into what I would call a true once in a lifetime giant, and so it was fun to kind of watch him grow and put a game plan together. And I really honestly didn't think the opening night of season I would get that buck killed. He actually had disappeared. I hadn't seen him in 10 days. And I got tipped off from the neighbor that he was visiting his orchard at night, eating pears and apples falling out of the trees on the ground. We had a really hard cold snap, and a lot of our fruit and stuff had dropped, and he was keying in on that. So I knew he was still around, but I just really didn't know when he was actually going to venture back over, my direction. And lo and behold, that night, I mean, I ended up shooting him at 23 yards. So it was pretty, I mean, it was like mind blowing. I actually, Danielle was in a wedding, and I was supposed to hunt and then go straight to the reception. And I was like called and I'm like, hey, I'm going to make it. And she's like, what? And I'm like, I shot extra. And she was like, get out of here. She's like, I'll see you when you get here. I'm like, no, really? Like,
I'm not coming.
I can't get out of my, yeah, I'm like, really, like, I'm coming. Like, I'm going to sit here and wait on you to get home because I can't drive. Like my body's convulsing and I don't really know what I'm doing right now. So I'll just wait on you to get here for safety reasons, and then we'll go find this buck. But yeah, no, it was cool. But it's funny though. I get a lot of guys that ask, like, oh man, you shot so I shot a 170 the year before, then killed that buck, and they're like, oh man, like, what are you gonna do now? And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, oh well, how do you go up from there? And I'm like, there again, like, I just don't get caught up in the score. Well, this year, prime example, this year I shot my oldest buck to date. I just got him back from the taxidermist. Shot him January 13th, hunted him all year. He's literally a mainframe 6 with like a 3-inch kicker. He grosses like 130 as like a 6 point. So, I mean, like, he's like score-wise one of the smaller bucks that I've got on the wall. But he was real wide and heavy and had a giant body and was just a super old buck I've hunted for a few years. And just, I've honestly never seen him while hunting in daylight, except for one time in the last like 4 years. But he ended up being aged at 8 years old. And I mean, he's honestly maybe my favorite. He's honestly maybe my favorite buck. I mean, just because it took me so long to actually get to figure him out in person and see him in person while hunting. And then once I saw him in person, I was just like, I've got to kill this buck. But, for me, it's like I said, I mean, I know a lot of guys, they love the score thing, and that's great. But I'm more of the man, if he's a mature buck, number one, and if he's got some cool character, number two. I mean, I just like those bucks that are different. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not going to let a 191 walk by again because I killed one and be like, oh, well, I'd like to kill something different. I mean, I'm not going to do that, but I'm just,
I only want typicals.
Yeah. So you're 175-inch mainframe 10. I just really don't like your kicker off your G-tube. Probably just going to let you walk. I just really don't care for you. I've already got one that looks sort of like you. No, I mean, I'm definitely not going to play that game. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think in today's world, a lot of people get caught up in the score thing. And, I mean, I don't know. I like to see people talk about age and weight and stuff like that versus just, oh, well, what do you score? Yeah. You know what I mean?
If I got caught up in the score, I'd fail a lot.
Well, that's the thing is, people don't, there's so many cool bucks that are killed every year that have such a badass story, but they're only a 140 or 150, which in my eyes is still a hog. But everybody wants to see that 200. And it's like, man, people don't realize what goes into hunting or even just finding a buck that'll hit 170 plus. I mean, I've got access to probably pushing 2,000 acres and that's all private. That's not counting any public. That's private. And I mean, I've only got, I'm going to say 1 or 2 deer every year. And I run about, I just threw 2 away that are totally broke. So I'm down. I run 14 cameras dang near year round. At this point, where I'm at is 14. And I usually have 2, maybe 3 that would be that booner or bigger. And we're talking 2,000 acres.
In Ohio, too.
In Ohio on farm ground. So, I mean, it's not like every farm's got a 160, 170 plus. I mean, I've got a lot of great farms that they just you just don't ever see a buck like that on them. I mean, you'll have some solid 4 and 5 year olds every year that are that 140 to 150. But if you're looking for that next level booner deer, that farm in the last 10 years has never produced that. It just, whether it's genetics or whether it's just, those bucks in that area that are that size just don't come there. I don't know, but it's just, I've got some farms that are dynamite farms that you'll never see a 170 on. I mean, that's just, if that's what you're looking for, that's not the farm to be on because they're just not there, but there's so many great deer, so I mean, like I said, not to get on a tangent, but I just, I don't like to get caught up in the score thing, but yeah, anyways, he was one, for the score guys, he was 191 gross and my biggest bow buck to date. That I just don't get, I like to score for fun, but I don't get caught up in the score thing. And, in today's world, I just see so much of the score thing that goes on, and not that I'm against it by any means. I'm not, I'm a fan of Pope and Young, fan of Boone and Crockett, fan of all that, but, I like to talk about, how unique a buck is or how old he was or what he weighed, that kind of stuff gets me just as excited as, what he gross or whatever. And I definitely don't even talk about net because in my opinion, nets are for fishing. So yeah. I don't even talk about that deal.
Yeah. You know of a certain situation where there was a deer of a friend of mine that shot that was extremely big, and until you got the net score and it lost literally 50 inches. So I don't agree with that kind of scoring, but it is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how extra was. I think when it was all said and done, he would have been in like the 150s. Yeah. Maybe cracked 160, so he would have lost basically 30 inches. So, but
so yeah.
No, that's I mean, like I said, I'm just a lucky guy that met you, and now I'm a badass. So that's pretty much about all I got. I mean, I don't really know what you developed for me. So
yeah, well, I know you and I could talk all day about whitetails too, especially since we come from relatively different worlds. Where I've hunted little farm country, I've hunted some, and I've hunted in Ohio where, I thought there was a big buck around every tree, and it's not that case if you don't have the right piece of, private ground. I've actually had better luck on some public ground in Ohio than I have on private. But and then I'm thinking if I'm assuming that I know you, you haven't hunted a whole lot of like big woods deer before, or have you?
I mean, I've done some hunting in some other states and different places and done some big wood stuff, but around here where I primarily do most of my bow hunting for whitetails here in Ohio, we just, you'll have 80 to 100 acre tracts, maybe a little bigger than that, but you just don't, I don't have many continuous properties where it's 300, 400, 500 acres of big woods and there's no crop fields. Now I have killed a couple good bucks in another county where it was big woods hunting, and I was hunting saddles and ridge lines, and I was hunting, natural funnels, creek bottoms and oak flats. And I mean, you were basically, just hunting a big woods buck and hoping to catch him in a spot that was easy for him to travel to and from wherever he was going. Mm-hmm. And I enjoy that style of hunting because you never know realistically what's going to show up. Like crop field and ag farms, all summer I can watch these bucks. I pretty much know who's around, who's here, what's going on. The big woods deer, you really don't know. You could be on one side of a saddle and have your camera hung and have 3 140s on it. And over the hill could be the Mac Daddy of them all that goes 175, and he's just living on the other side of that saddle and never get photos of him. Yeah, and you never get photos of him. But then one day they're in their rut, he comes up over that saddle and he's in your lap at 20 yards, and you're like, "Oh my God, holy shit, where did this buck come from?"
Drop your bow out of the tree and have a quick panic attack and
and then you pull out your Glock and put it sideways and you fire 3 rounds into him. And then whenever you take pictures, you just flip him on the other side and put an arrow and he's like, "Yeah, check this sweet buck out. Like, hey, what up, Vortex? You want to sponsor me?" Yeah, we've both been there.
I heard that's how you killed Extra, but we won't get into that story. I can tell you that much.
I'm not, I'm not going to say I did anything illegal. You're allowed to have, you're allowed in Ohio to, have a compound or a crossbow. I'm not going to say that I didn't spine him with my crossbow and then shoot him with my compound and be like, yeah, hey, I did kill him with my compound. It is what it is, I mean, no,
I can't even handle you right now. Oh man. So, so that's funny, so let's transition a little bit here, Clint. So how you and I first, kind of got talking, when we first, met up, we started talking about Western hunts. I remember seeing, the first picture of you was with a New Mexico elk. That's when we became Facebook friends, and the rest was history from there. But you had a big New Mexico bull on there, and that was right after I got back from my trip and where I didn't kill anything. But I was like super pumped about it and wanted to learn a little bit more, about what you were doing. And then once I, started seeing some of your adventures and things that you're doing, it was pretty obvious that you spend a lot of time out west and that you love it.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I just kind of jumped into it, not really knowing what I was doing, but had some buddies that had been out there and kind of just learned off of them. But yeah, I mean, that first, my first out west hunt was actually a mountain lion hunt. And a buddy of mine said, "Hey, let's go to New Mexico and hunt elk in the fall." I said, "Yeah." I said, "That's awesome." I said, "I've always wanted to do that. The only hunt I've really ever been out of state prior to that was some whitetail hunts. And then I went up to Saskatchewan, Canada, and killed a big black bear with my bow a few years prior to that. But I'd never really been out west, and I'd always dreamed about doing that. So I was like, yeah, man, let's do it." So then it was in like August, and he's like, "Well, let's plan it for the fall of 2015. So so this was like the 2014. We're talking about it, and so I get this call from him about a month later. He goes, "Hey, do you want to go on a mountain lion hunt in New Mexico first?" Like, I'm like, "Well, when?" He's like, "In like February." I'm like, "In like a couple months from now, February?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right, like that'd be kind of cool." Like, I grew up coon hunting and stuff, so like I know you got to hunt them with hounds and all that. I'm like, yeah, that'd be kind of fun to chase those around with a bow, whatever. Well, long story short, I mean, it was like basically like just imagine waking up every morning and someone comes in your room and kicks you right in the balls, and then every night before you go to bed, someone different comes in and kicks you in the balls, and that's how your day starts and ends for 7 days. That's what that mountain lion hunt was like. But
I hear that's like being married, but either way.
Well, I don't know. I'm not married yet, but I mean, it's close enough. But no, I'm just kidding. But
Danielle, don't listen to this.
Yeah, don't listen to this, Jesus. But truth be told, it was one of those hunts that was super tough. But being out west my first time, getting to see the landscape, getting to see the mountains, getting to, we found a bunch of elk and muley sheds. It was just one of those experiences that I was like, I love this. I mean, although I was riding on a horse for literally like 30, I think we averaged 33 miles a day. It was day 5 when we actually finally caught up to the cat that I killed. Well, I had like 150 miles on horseback. And I'm by no means am I like a rider. I mean, I've rode a little in my life, but not to where I was like ready for that. Like I was not honestly prepared for that. But yeah, though, I mean, it was one of those hunts that really opened my eyes, and I'm just like, man, this is like such big country and just such beautiful landscape, and it was just such a different style. And so then fast forward to September, and I get to go out there, and me and my buddy both shot 2 really nice bulls an hour apart. Got into this herd of them. There was 3 bulls in the herd, and we ended up killing the 2 biggest, and we had cows amongst us and bugling. I mean, it was crazy. It was like textbook, picture perfect elk hunt, and took all day and night to pack them out. And I mean, we were like 20 miles in on horses packed in. And I mean, it was such a fun hunt. And I mean, when I come back from that, I remember telling Danielle, who at the time was pregnant with Easton, I'm just like, I'm in love with this out west. I am like enthralled with with what the West like gives you as far as a hunter. I mean, just the
And then you
the
got
sights.
kicked in the balls again for saying that you loved out west so much, and
And
probably didn't say that to her.
yeah, and then I got kicked in the balls again. But so yeah, that's kind of where it started. And I just started thinking. I'm like, okay. At that point, I had wrote a couple articles for some hunting, some deer hunting and some turkey hunting stuff, some blog work, a little bit of magazine work, some newspaper stuff. And I started thinking, I'm like, well, no one really around here like is going solo out west and doing a lot of this crazy, some of these crazy hunts with a bow. Like, I think I'd like to do some of this wild stuff. And like my mom and dad were just like totally like, you're an idiot, you're nuts, what are you doing? Like, you can't go out there by yourself. Like, are you crazy? Like, do you want to die? I just started thinking, and I like got this big dream. Like, I'm just like, man, what if I could be like a whitetail / Western guy and like get it done in both worlds with my bow? Like, imagine the opportunities that would open up for me as like a writer. Like, I could write about like basically every avenue. I mean, I could write about out west stuff, whitetail stuff, turkey stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, I'm just going to go for it. So I went out, and I mean, I've been to Colorado a couple times by myself, and I've been hunted Montana, and I've hunted, Utah, and I've been to some different places that, it's like once you get started, you just can't stop. But I mean, most of these hunts I've come back honestly without punching a tag. I mean, but I've just taken away so much from it. The experience itself, like I'm just like consumed by the whole deal of bow hunting out west. I mean, I absolutely just love it.
Yeah. And that's where like, and I mean, the whole point behind this podcast and everything is just showing people like, I mean, without you even saying it, you can tell in your voice and your passion that how much that's changed your life overall. I mean, I didn't know you before, but I heard you were kind of a waste. So, that's now you changed your life around.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I exaggerated a little bit, but anyways,
I was a troubled kid going down a bad road. And then I found you, and things have just turned around, and I went from scabs to riches within like a month. I mean, it's magical of what's taken place. But no, I mean, you are though. I mean, all jokes aside, you're right. I mean, that Western style of hunting, especially, I mean, and I'm an only all bow guy. I've been like that for probably 5-6 years now. And I mean, it's just taught me so much about not only myself, but just, like what I can mentally and physically handle, and just, I just love all the planning and the unknown factor has always captivated me out there, because you just don't know. I mean, here in Ohio, when I walk into a stand an hour before daylight, like there's nothing out there unless Danielle is really mad at me and decides to hide behind a tree and stab me as I walk by. But there's nothing out there that's going to like attack me or hurt me or anything like that. But like out west, there's just so many different levels of unknown like factors that you just, I mean, one wrong step on a rock shoot and that's it. You get, you're in Montana hunting and you run into a grizzly, like me and my good buddy Brian Barney did a few last spring. I mean, we ran into a sow with some cubs one day. You just don't know. And I mean, I love that unknown factor. The lightning storms. Oh my God. I mean, I've never been afraid of those. Never been afraid of lightning in my life until I hunted the super, super high country of Colorado last year. And I was in that like 13 to 14,000 foot range. I got caught going up over a pass in the middle of a lightning storm, middle of the day. And I was pinned down. And I mean, I'm not going to lie. I was shitting bricks, like just praying to God that I made it through the next hour. Like, I mean, and like, here I am, like going back again. I mean, it's like, you put yourself through those situations and you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to do this again. And then as soon as you get through it, you're like,
type 2 fun, man.
Yeah. Like I am such a badass now. Like I just lived through a lightning storm in Colorado. Like, yep. Pretty much invincible. That's basically where I'm at right now. Pretty much.
Last year last couple of years, but especially last year, I can think of this one lightning storm that just hit, and it was, I was climbing up the hill. I went down over this ridge. I got back up, was heading back to camp. It was just getting dark, and I'm like, well, shit, I didn't get any water I don't have enough to make dinner or breakfast in the morning. I'm like, I had to drop back down over to this little mountain lake. I had to drop straight off this ridge. And I was like, I don't want to carry all of my shit down there and then carry it back up. So I took everything out of my pack besides my empty bladder and went down over the hill, including my rain gear I took out, and got down to the lake.
Nice.
It hit like, how it happens. It was like every day you could look up, like, all right, it's 4 o'clock, it's sunny, 4:12, you're getting hit by sideways hail, lightning, there's trees coming down. Oh man, it's something like you've never experienced. I remember, I think maybe even up to 3 times on this last trip, I remember praying to God saying, just get me out of here. Like, I'm done. Like, just save me this one time and I'll never come back into these woods again. And then like 9 minutes later, I'm fine. But it's crazy.
Well, and that's something that I want to touch on a little bit in this podcast, because I think a lot of guys either A, don't want to talk about it, or B, they haven't experienced it yet. And I know, like you're getting ready to go on a solo hunt by yourself this year. And, I've been working on a blog and finished a blog for you and for East Meets West. That's going to, I kind of talk about how solo hunting's made me a better, not only bow hunter, but just a better person in general. And, the solo deal is really cool, but there's like that anxiety / fear factor that comes with it. Like your first couple nights. And I mean, you'll see what I'm talking about this year. Like your first few nights out there, you'll be kind of like wide awake, hear a twig snap, which is probably like a rabbit or something. And you'll be like, what if that's a velociraptor? I mean, what if that's what it's out there? I mean, should I peek outside my tent and look? Should I turn my light on, or should I just act like I don't hear it? Like, it's so funny how
lay on your back with your pistol on your chest. Like, come on, bring it.
You've got like your like, I have like my freaking my Taito knife on my chest. Like, come on in here, I'll stab whatever you are. Like, like you're gonna
in
really
a real
do
light,
something.
like girly voice. Like, come on, I'm gonna catch you.
Yeah, but no, I mean the solo deal though. I some guys can do it, some guys can't, and I was really anxious to see if I was going to like it, and I did. I mean, I really do like it. It's kind of a way for me to reconnect with myself and be out there alone. And it's like stone. It's like, a stone will sharpen stone, or steel sharpen steel, however you want to word it. But you're kind of against yourself. Like you're competing against yourself. And I mean, like, I try to really push myself to the limits because I don't want to let myself down. And even on some of these hunts when I haven't filled a tag, I've left that state heading home knowing I gave it my all. And that's what I love about solo hunting, is it's like, it's just you. It all revolves around you. Like,
there's no one else to blame at that point.
No. I mean, you make it or you break it, all based off of what you do, your decisions. Did you train hard enough? Did you shoot far enough? Did you shoot enough? Are you proficient enough with your camping stuff? Are you smart enough to stay out of the lightning storms and not get killed? I mean, and like, people will laugh at that statement, but that's the brutality and the truth of solo hunting in the mountains, especially the high country. I mean, you go to the really electric states like Nevada, which I haven't hunted yet, but I'm hoping to hit next year if Nevada will let me get a tag, which they didn't this year, maybe next year. Thanks, the Division of Wildlife in Nevada, a bunch of assholes. Anyway, hoping I can get there. But like Colorado, I mean, it can be electric. Utah, I mean, some of these states, you get into that lightning, and like we talked about earlier, it's just fun. It's scary, but it's fun. But it's like, it's stuff that you just don't. It's like I said, it's that unknown factor that I really, really like, and that's what's just kind of, captivated me about Western hunting, especially solo hunting. It's fun for.
when you get those, those lightning storms, and when you go through that, doesn't it make you, appreciate the things that you were complaining about before? Like when you're at home and you're like, oh no, it's raining outside. I got to walk to my car. Like,
Oh yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I don't get bothered by little
Yeah.
stuff, and I laugh at people that do. And so what you were saying about like the aspect of solo hunting and everything, and I'm going to be honest, like I'm freaked out about it. Like I am not, I'm excited, but I don't know what to think. It's just out there is so different. Like, I mean, I hunt solo, for whitetails and in the big woods Appalachian region, but I have a place to go home to every night. I know I'm only X amount of miles from the truck. There's not going to be this, happening. When you're in the actual mountains like that, like whether that's Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Nevada, wherever it is, it's a whole different world. This is the true wilderness. You don't have those comforts anymore. You don't have the cell service. You don't have, those creature comforts that you're used to everyday life. And your mind starts to play tricks on you. I know last year I hunted most of the trip by myself, but I had someone when we went back to, we set up a base camp where we hiked into about a little over 4 miles from the truck, and we'd hike back there, and I'd meet up with my dad and my brother and some other people and my uncle. That was the only ones we were there with. But having that aspect of coming back and being able to talk to somebody was huge. And you don't have that when you're by yourself. You just get freaked out. I mean, my first year out there, even when I was with people, it was weird when you go from every day having your phone on you, having, talking to people, driving down, seeing people, and you go to not seeing that. It's nice, but it freaks you out at first, and you have to, be able to get through that. And people may, laugh at that and say, like, what's the big deal? You just don't see anybody, but you don't truly understand it until you go through one of those mountain hailstorms or lightning storms, or just days of just beating your body into the ground, and then, trying to sleep when you think you hear a gigantic Sasquatch outside smacking trees together and everything else, and the mountain lions that are in the trees above you, which I know they're there, but I can't see them.
Yeah, well, the Sasquatches, they usually grab 2x4s and beat those together. It's kind of like a whoa type of sound with, like, your knuckles beating together. But yeah, I mean, you haven't been out there by yourself yet, so you don't quite understand the Sasquatch thing. But you will. You'll see some when you're out there. I mean, I've experienced some. I'm friends with a couple of them. We Skype and whatnot back and forth. But yeah, you'll figure that all out. I mean, it's. But
yeah.
No, I mean,
so,
yeah, you're.
What I want you to dig into a little bit, Clint, is like, what was your first experience by yourself? And so what are some, pluses and what are some minuses that go along with solo hunting?
I would say the biggest thing that I took away from my first solo trip was you want to be in good physical shape, no doubt. But I honestly feel like the guy who is mentally prepared for that hunt will outlast the guy who is more physically prepared and not as mentally prepared. Like, I'll take the overweight guy who mentally knows what's ahead against the guy all day, against the guy who is physically a monster but mentally hasn't really thought about what he's about to embark in. And what I mean by that is, before you ever go on this hunt, like, you have to grasp that there is nobody. There's nobody to blame. There's nobody to fall on. There's nobody to lean on. There's no one to even bounce an idea off of. Like, you are solely out there by yourself, and you've got to find comfort in that. For me, I'll be honest. I mean, I miss the shit out of kids, Danielle, my family. But I look at it like this. Danielle's at home with the boys. Like, I'm on this trip. I'm thankful for it. I can't be sitting around moping. Like, I've got to make the most of it. Like, Like, I feel like they're depending on me to get it done. Like, I'm on this trip. I'm thankful to be able to go on it. I'm thankful that she's supportive of it, that my family's supportive of it. Like, I'm here for a job. You know what I mean? Like, so like you've got to find ways to get your mind to work with you, not against you. Like, you know, you're going to have moments where you feel lonely and you feel out of your comfort zone, and that's okay. That's fine. It's going to happen, but you've got to have it in the back of your head that you chose to do this. This is your big hunt of the year. This is your opportunity. It's all on your shoulders. Like, you just got to dig into it every day and find that motivation. And for me, the motivation is, hey, I'm out here by myself to get a job done, and I'm going to make the most of every hour that I'm out here, and I'm eventually going to freaking get it done. It's going to pay off. But, you know, I mean, your first time, there's a lot of firsts that are going to come about that your second, third, fourth solo trip you won't have to worry about. But, like, just for example, like, I remember on my first trip by myself, one time my jet boil wasn't working. And
the igniter?
Yeah, it just wasn't working. And I'm like, I was kind of freaking out because I'm like, my main meals are, you know, meals that Mountain House meals, and like, you know, like, or like what Heather's Choice does, you know, like meals that I need to boil some water. And I'm like, oh shit. Like, and I started to almost like have a panic attack about this because I'm like, oh my God, like, what am I going to, you know, but I just calmed down and I figured I took it all apart and I put it back together and was able to get it going. But it's like, you know, you have to trick your mind into thinking like, okay, I'm out here to survive on my own. And okay, what do I need to do to make a situation that's not good? Or what do I need to do to better myself today versus yesterday? And it's like, you've almost got to play little tricks with your mind to get you through the day. But I mean, it's such a captivating experience because you are by yourself. And I mean, you're going to experience stuff alone that 99.9% of the rest of the world will never experience. I mean, not many guys do this kind of stuff. So it's, I mean, you honestly, like, every time I leave one of these trips, whether I kill something or not, I honestly do feel like a badass, and not in a cocky sense, but just in a sense of, you know what? I might not have killed the mule deer I wanted on this trip, but I made it 9 days by myself in the backcountry. I survived. I gave it my all. I experienced and witnessed a bunch of super cool stuff. And you know what? I did something that most people are too, in plain words, chicken shit to do. And like, that's the mindset you've got to have. It's like, you know, you're going into this with I know I can do it. No matter what happens, I'll figure it out. And that's kind of the fun of it for me. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I've done enough of them now to where I enjoy the problem solving. Like, I enjoy the, okay, there's a buck bedded over there. It's 5 o'clock. Do I have enough time to make it around the backside of that mountain and get up on top and get above him and hope I catch him when I'm feet? You know, it's just scenarios that you play in your head that you're like, okay, Clint, what should you do here? Like, there's no one to ask. Like, you're totally all going off of your own instinct, your own gut. I don't know. I've just really fallen in love with that. Now, the negatives, I don't like to be negative, but I mean, there definitely are some negatives to solo hunting. I mean, number one, you're solo. You're by yourself. You kill an elk 12 miles back, you're going to have to pack everything out by yourself. I mean, you know, there's a lot of grueling, aggravating moments that can come with a solo hunt. I mean, you're on your own. If you fall and break your leg, or if something happens, you don't have anybody to rely on. I mean, so you've got to learn to adapt. And I mean, that's a negative. The other negative is you don't get to share any of this with anybody. Yeah, you can take pictures, you can take video, but you don't have anybody there to actually be like, dude, look at that sunset, or dude, look at that bull, or look at that buck strip his velvet on that bush over there. Like, to me, I like to experience that stuff with people, but then again, though, it's also kind of cool to do it on your own. But I mean, I can see where that's kind of a negative, like, you know, you are solo. But honestly, I feel like the positives really outweigh the negatives. I mean, in my mind, if you can list a bunch of negatives, you just shouldn't even go on a solo hunt, because you're probably honestly not going to like it. I mean, and I'm not trying to discourage anybody listening, because I love solo hunting. I think everyone should do it at least once and try it. But if you're going into it with a negative mindset and you're already dreading the process, and I don't mean anxiety or anticipation, I mean you're actually sitting there like dreading it. You're probably like you've already let your mind.
You've already failed.
Yeah, you've already let your mind kind of defeat the purpose of you going. So I'm going to kind of be worried about you a little bit. I mean, like if I talk to you right before you leave to go to Colorado this year and you're like, man, I just really am not feeling like this is going to be fun, and I'm honestly kind of dreading it. Like, I would probably be like, shit, man, like he's probably not going to fare well by himself out there. Like he's probably going to mentally go insane. And it's like I said earlier, that's the biggest thing, is the mental aspect. Like, you've got to mentally understand what you're about to do and really come to grasp with no communication to the outside world, nobody else with you. It is you on your own. You got to figure it out yourself. And I mean, you either love that or you hate that. I have learned to love that, but some guys don't. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't want anyone to take away from this podcast that I'm saying you're a pansy or a puss or you're not a badass if you don't like to solo hunt, because that is not true at all. I mean, I know a lot of dudes who are fantastic bow hunters and have killed way more stuff than I've killed at this point, who just do not like to hunt solo. They're just not a fan of it. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, but we're just talking about solo hunting and why we both like it, or why we're both intrigued by it. I guess you're about to go on your first one. So realistically, you could come back and be like, I'm never doing that again. I don't like it. I mean, honestly, I personally think you'll love it, but you might come back and be like, dude, you're nuts to do that for 10 days by yourself. Like, I don't know how you do it. That's crazy. I mean, and that's okay.
Where I'm at with it is, when I found out that I was going to be going, by myself this year, I had some people ask, let's go together, let's do it. And I didn't want to offend anybody, but I said no, because for me, I'm a person that I'm very strong-minded, and some may say I'm stubborn, but I have something in my head and goals I want to do and the way I want to do it. And I know if I do that by myself, I'm not letting anybody down if I'm wrong. I can make my own decisions and run with it. And for me to hunt with somebody, I don't hunt with a lot of people. I hunt with like a select few people that are like-minded with me, and sometimes it can be a little bit different, that we can, play off each other's, strengths and weaknesses, but I can't hunt with everybody. People will not like me after, so many days of being with me if you're not somewhat similar or have the same goals in mind. And that's where I struggle with just, going out and hunting with. I have some great friends that I know that I can never hunt with, just because I know our attitudes and everything would clash. And that's not me saying that, I'm an alpha type personality where I got to take over and take charge. That's not it. But if I'm going to spend my whole year planning something like this kind of adventure, I want to get the experience that I have in my head out of it. And I can't do that with, just anybody. So for me, I think it's almost a thing to, kind of prove to myself to see, that I can do this. And I want to push myself, because I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I'm already, I get uncomfortable thinking about it, but it's an exciting uncomfortable. It's something that I know that I want to do to, get to that next level in bow hunting. So when I, from bow hunting in the East, just going west just opened up my mind to so many things. And I want to see if I can go that next level. And like you said, maybe I'll hate it. Maybe I'll come back and say, Clint, you're messed up. I don't care. I don't like you. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You're a solo hunter. I'm not. Maybe that's the case, but maybe I'll love it, and I'll love that sense of adventure. But I'm excited to, kind of get away from everything and just put myself out there and see, relying completely on myself, what can happen. And that's what I'm extremely excited about. So, Clint, I do have a question for you around the mental aspect. You've said a couple times, about how important it is to be mentally strong. How is that something you're born with, or is that something that you can, create or develop?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I think some people are just born like stubborn and bullheaded, and to the point where like they mentally just won't give in or give up. And I honestly get that from my dad. My dad is very much like that. Like if you tell him there's no way you can plant this entire farm in corn today, he'll be like, okay, watch this. And he might run that planter for 14 hours straight, but damn well sure that farm will be done before the day's over. Like that's just he's just, the minute you tell him he can't do something, he like perks up. So I'm kind of like that too. Like, I guess I was born with that, but I also know some people though who, when they're faced with adversity, they transform into someone who's mentally tough, who outside of that adversity really doesn't show that aspect. Like, so I think it kind of just depends on, can you be born with it? Yeah, absolutely. I think that for sure. But can you also learn to be mentally tough? Yes.
Is it through experiences like this that you can, or many events, can you learn it?
Yeah, I think as you go on some of these adventures and as you face different obstacles, I think you can mentally conquer your fears or conquer your demons, for lack of a better phrase, like almost like tough people conquer tough times. Like if you're faced with a tough situation on a hunt, you might not be mentally a tough person, but because you're backed in a wall and there's no way out but to come out swinging, like that's just your only option. That's kind of like what you do naturally without even thinking about it. And I think a lot of people, I think some of the best bow hunters that I know, one that comes to mind right away would be my good buddy Brian Barney, who is one of the main bow hunting writers for Eastman's and has the Eastman's Elevated podcast, who I know you follow real close and are a big fan of. I've hunted with him a lot the last year and a half, and he's one of those guys that he does not come off as, a badass or a hard ass, but like when faced with a tough climb or a tough situation, like that dude kicks it up into another gear, and he will put himself in another place and like he'll lock himself into 4 low and just be like, yep, I'm doing it. We're going to do it. We're going to make this stock. We're going to make this climb. We're going to, I can remember last year on a spring bear hunt, last day we spot this bear through the spotting scope like 2 miles away. We're not quite sure if he's a shooter, but it's the last day, so we got to make a play on him. And he's like, man, light's fading fast. He's like, man, what do you think? I'm like, dude, let's go for it. He's like, that's what I wanted to hear. He's like, let's make it happen. And like, I watched him go from calm and collected to just savage. I mean, it took everything I had to even remotely sort of keep up with this guy. I mean, we tore down off this mountain and jumped a couple creeks, crossed over this saddle, got up into this big bowl right where this bear was heading, ended up being a smaller boar, maybe a 5-footer, walked by us at 15 yards. Like, it was such a cool experience. But like, moral of the story is like that dude will kick it into another gear that you don't even know he has. And I really think that people can do that without, you don't have to be born with that mentality, but in some aspect, you just know when it's time to bring that out of you. So yeah, I think it can be learned, and I think experiences will sharpen people. And I think you'll see on your trip, like, there's going to be times where you're going to be like, shit, what do I do now? And something will click and you're just going to gain confidence. Like you'll go from being worried or kind of in a panic to, all right, I got this. All right, I got it. Okay, I can make this climb up out of this rock face. Or I can remember last year hunting this one giant typical buck that I had hunted for a few days in a row. I had to strap my bow on my Kafaru pack and make pretty much a freehand climb up over this rock face. And I'm by no means a rock climbing guru or a rock climber by any means. I mean, I've pissed around and done it a little bit, like here and there at some parks and stuff. But I mean, with a 30-pound pack.
You mean like the rock wall in the gym, like that type of thing?
Yeah, I mean, like I've done that, and then maybe like a little bit more, like outside, like freestyling with some buddies, just pissing around like at caves and stuff. But yeah, basically, imagine like crawling around a rock face at like a gym somewhere. I mean, yeah, just your basic like, okay, this is fun. But never anything where I've got a 30-pound pack hanging off my back and a bow strapped to it, and I've got my fingers are bleeding from grasping so hard onto the edge of this cliff. And I mean, it's just stuff where it's like, when I first started, I like remember looking down, which is a total no-no, and I was just like, oh shit, like what am I doing right now? This is all for a freaking stupid mule deer. Like what am I thinking? And then I can remember just kicking it into another gear and being like, okay, all right, mule deer, you want to roll up over this rock face? I'm going to roll up over it too, you bastard. Watch this. Here I come. And I just did it. Like it just kicked into a gear. And I mean, you'll find yourself in that situation where you'll just kick it into another gear and you'll just go, but yeah, I mean, I think you can be born with it, but I also think you can learn to acquire that as well.
Yeah. And I mean that, so I'm glad you answered it that way, because I think there's both. There's certain people, and I'd say my dad's one of them that was, or maybe he acquired it, but ever since, that I knew him, it seemed like he was born with it. But just, it don't matter the weather. I'm thinking specifically for whitetail hunting or even just any kind of work. He's just focused on getting the job done and doesn't complain, doesn't bitch, just does it. And so I've learned a lot from that, and so there's that side of things, and then there's the other side where you acquire that. So for me, going out west for the first time and going through certain situations, I didn't even like heights. So as you know how Colorado high country can be, you're in some really radical places where one wrong, you put your foot in the wrong place and you're tumbling down very far. And I remember freaking the hell out when I first did it. And this past year when I was out there, it wasn't as big of a deal. I was able to do it. I had more confidence. You obviously still have to keep your mind, set and watch your footing and keep focused on your task, but it becomes easier. And and that correlated over to whitetail hunting. This past year, I sat 8 days in a row, dark to dark, and saw a total of like 5 deer over that time frame. And any whitetail hunters know when you sit in a stand that long, that many days in a row, and don't see many deer, you start going a little bit insane in your head. And you have to, and normally maybe I'd be like, all right, on day 5, I'm going to sleep in a little bit. I don't feel like, going out this morning. There's nothing going to come through anyways. I'll be good at going out at 10 or whatever the case may be. Those experiences help you push through that. And that correlates straight over to regular life. You're faced with adversity in your everyday life, whether that's work, whether that's relationships, whether that's friendships. You're faced with that shit all the time. And these experiences, in my opinion, help out a lot. And I'm excited to see what solo hunting can do for that. How help you deal with it, and learn to, to see the positive in everything. And that's the way I am in regular life. I do the best to see the positive in everything. And no matter what the situation is, people are like, "Why? How do you laugh about that kind of stuff?" You're not you should be, worked up or this or that. I'm like, yeah, nothing you could do. You just got to keep rolling with the punches and see where you come out at. And I see the same thing in you a little bit. And I'm sure solo hunting and everything really helps that out, whether that's solo hunting or anything else. Anything that's tough makes you better, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've taken my whitetail mental process out west with me, and I've actually thought about it and used it. Like, around here, I'm known as that idiot that'll sit dark till dark 2 weeks straight if I have to. I have somehow I've acquired this love-hate relationship with all-day hunting, and for me, I get to take a lot of days off at work. I can think back to a few years ago. I started all-day hunting October 31st. It was in 2015. We had an early rut that year, and there was a lot of really, really good rut activity that first week in November. So I started in I think it was the 31st, Halloween. And I did not miss a day. I think I hunted every day dark till the 12th of November. A lightning storm came through on the 13th, and I went back to work on the 19th. So out of that span, only 2 days did I not hunt dark till dark. I remember I lost about 15 pounds, did not kill the buck I was after until actually December 27th.
That was that big one, that real big one you shot right after Christmas there, in 2015? You were telling me that story?
Yeah, he was a big mainframe 8 with some kickers and
giant deer.
And and I've always forced myself to hunt all day, but as times went on, I've grown to love it. But I use that mentality, like when I'm out west, it'll be middle of the day and I'm like, man, I could take a nap. The elk aren't bugling, or I'm not, a lot of the mule deer are bedded. I could take a nap. And then I think back to whitetail hunting and I'm like, do you ever leave during the rut and go to your truck and take a nap? Like, I would never even think to do that. I mean, I literally almost put myself on the 6th floor, not trying to toot my own horn, but my buddies always make the joke that, oh yeah, Casper's feet don't touch the ground during the month of November in daylight unless he's shot a buck and he's going to track it. And they say that and people laugh, but they're like, no, seriously, this cat will hang in a lone wolf stand for weeks on end until he punches a tag or the rut comes and goes. And I don't know. I mean, I've learned to love that hardship that the rut brings with all day hunting. And that's kind of how out west hunting is it's like solo hunting. I've learned to embrace the grind and embrace that struggle. And we could do a whole podcast about gear and what to bring and different things, but just while I'm thinking about it, for all you guys that are going to do a solo trip, I'm not saying you've got to go out and buy the best gear out there, but there's a few things I'm going to tell you right now. There's 3 things that come to my mind that you absolutely need to have, or need to try to afford the best of these 3 items that you can possibly come up with money wise. And that's going to be clothing. I know me and you both are huge fans of Sitka. We have been for a long time. Sitka gear allows you to wear the least amount of clothes and pack the least amount of clothes and be able to function in all different types of weather. And that's huge because of the weight issue. The next thing I'm going to touch on real quick is a pack. You got to have a good pack, whether it's a Kafaru or an Exo or a Stone Glacier, or, you got to have a pack that allows you to carry heavy loads and that has good load lifters and that doesn't rub around your waist. And it's built to take a beating and built to haul out big big loads. And then the other thing is going to be your sleepwear. You've got to have a good sleep system with a sleeping bag, sleeping pad, There's a million different options, but I mean, just to touch on real quick, those three things are so huge to being successful solo hunting, because if you're not sleeping at night and you're not comfortable with your clothing, and on clothing, I should add in footwear being part of your clothing gear too, because boots, I mean, if your feet get blisters and they're not in proper shape and they're not functioning, I mean, you're in huge trouble. But just all that combined, I mean, you've got to be able to sleep at night. You've got to be able to walk around during the day. You've got to be comfortable what you're wearing, and you can't have all this bulk and all this weight in your pack. So, I mean, just real quick to touch on those while I'm thinking about it, those also make or break a trip, and they can make or break a person mentally. I love to throw my Crispies on in the morning when I head out on a hunt. They're comfortable. I know my feet are going to be comfortable. I love my Kafaru pack. I know you bought a Reckoning just like I did, and honestly, I freaking love that pack. I mean,
yeah, after going from an ultralight pack that I thought was going to be the ticket. I got it on sale. It was everyone's talking about it. It's sub 4 pounds. Hell yeah. And it broke in multiple places on my first trip and carried loads terrible. I can't imagine if I actually killed something had I pack it out, because it sucked carrying 55, 60 pounds in for camp. And then I went and spent the money on a Kafaru. And when people say buy once, cry once, listen and do it. And again, yes, that's an additional barrier to going out west, is spending the money. But if you can do it, if you can, not go out with your buddies one night a month and save up money over a 6 to 8 month period to buy a Kafaru, to, whether that's Kafaru, like I said, or Stone Glacier, EXO, whatever those top packs are, whatever you can find that fit you, do your research, figure out what you want in that, and save up your money for it, because that is huge. I would say, and I would completely agree with you, I would say your backpack, your footwear, and then your clothing system are some of the three most important things in my eyes. Even way more important than a bow. You can take a 20-year-old bow out there and kill something as long as you're comfortable with it. But if you can't last through the lightning storms, the snow, the rain, the sleet, and be able to carry weight around effectively because you're getting blisters or your back's getting sore, shoulders are getting sore, that's a problem, And I just completely agree with that. I think you and I will have to do a whole podcast on gear. But while I'm thinking of it, Clint, we got a question on Instagram today from Mark Hannon. I'm going to pull that up real quick and read it about pack weight.
Yeah.
And let me see here what he had to say. So Mark said, what do you like to set your pack weight at for, say, a 3-night, 4-day hunt? Also, what is your limit for the hike into hunt? Example, 4 to 6 hours. So how would you answer that, Clint?
I would say, like for me, like last year I did 9 days in Colorado. I think my pack weighed, if I remember right, it was 44 pounds, 43 pounds. And I'm a minimalist.
That's impressive.
I'm only taking what I absolutely cannot live with. My main reason for that was because it was 13.4 or 13.3, damn near 13 and a half miles into where I was going to set up my camp and start hunting from. So I had 3/4 of a day's hike in just to get in. So I did not want to carry anything that was going to be extra weight. I mean, this sounds silly, but I cut my toothbrush in half. I only took a little dab of toothpaste, 3 pairs of socks, 3 pairs of underwear. I mean, I'm not out there to be pretty or look pretty or dress pretty. I'm very minimalist when it comes to that stuff. And I've learned that over time that for me, that's a better system. For a 3-day, 4-night, man, I mean, you know, you're talking a little bit of food to get you through those couple days, and then your sleepwear. I would probably have maybe 2 pairs of socks, 1 pair of underwear, maybe 2 pairs of underwear for that type of trip. I'm going to say 25 to 27 pounds.
Is that
maybe,
including water?
You know, maybe 30. What I like to do on water is I like to have water always with me, but I like to set up my camp and then go get water. I've got a collapsible water jug that I'll pack in. So I try to not. One of my biggest things when I'm looking to set up a camp or where I'm looking to hunt is I need water close by, not only for me but for animals. That's going to put game close to me. So I always try to set up close to water because it's like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It's good for me. It's good for the animals. So, you know, with water, I'll usually fill up like one of my like one of my my bottles. I've got a Life Straw, and then I've got a regular Nalgene bottle from Kafaru, and I'll run those 2 pretty much for all my trips. I'll store water in one for.
You don't run a bladder or
to
anything?
cook with, and then I'll have. You know, I'm not a huge bladder fan. I don't really care for how they fit in some of the packs. I don't really care for how they like slosh around the weight right in the center of your back.
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly, I really don't like the way they taste. I hate that rubber taste. So I personally am not a big bladder guy. Now I know a lot of guys that love them and like them, but I'm just not a big bladder guy. But I'm going to say for Mark's question, I would want to be in the 20s. I would want to be in the 20s, maybe 30. Not saying you couldn't carry more, but I just don't really think you need more than that on a 3 to 4 night hunt. I mean, for me personally, I know I wouldn't, but like I said, I'm a minimalist. I know some guys stress about not having everything they need, so they might be a 40-pound pack for that and a 55-pound pack for a 9-10 day hunt, and that's okay too. But
yeah, I was over 60 for 7 days.
Oh,
and
man.
and yeah, when including my bow, it was 72 pounds. Extremely overkill, and I've learned from it. So, so it's all learning experience, and you're going to pack more than you think you need. And this year will be a completely different story. I promise you that. I'm going to take less in, and also my day pack weight. I used to throw shit in there that I did not need for a day hunt, that I would throw in for no reason at all. And so what I did was I wrote down notes while I was out there. What didn't I use? What did I use? You know, what's nice to haves? What are things I need? And I did that while I was out there, and then right after we got back, and while it was fresh in my mind, so that when I go look at my gear list this year, I can be like, all right, I never touched that at all. The only exception to that is first aid stuff. I always keep that and you know, attempt to know how to use it somewhat. But
yeah, I mean, like, you don't need 7 skin magazines. Just take one. And only look at one page, then go to page 3. Then the next couple of days you can use the even numbered pages, 2, 4, 6. Like, I mean, you can't take that many nudie magazines into the backcountry like that. I mean, it's just too much weight, Bo. I mean, you're gonna have to leave some of that stuff behind.
Yeah, I know. I strapped a Walmart bag to the outside of it full of them, and it just wasn't working out. So I'll take the year subscription and cut it down to like a quarterly type thing.
No, wait a second. Was the Walmart bag recyclable? Because I mean, if it falls off your pack, I mean, I don't want to be packing out your shit, your garbage 20 years from now. I mean,
all right, I'll be honest with you. It was an Aldi's bag, and I got the ones that were like the coolers, like the little cooler thickness.
Yep.
I didn't want my magazines, getting destroyed by sunlight or moisture, and so I kept them safe.
Well, I applaud your honesty, and I'm sure the audience listening right now is going to be happy that you confessed and have come clean.
Viewers just went flatlined. Our listeners just flatlined to 0 at this point. But
Really?
no, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure they did.
Well, they'll come back.
Hopefully, guys, come back. But anyways, Clint. So so there's one thing I want to ask you about the solo aspect, and it's never talked about because people, I want to say it's an ego thing that they won't talk about. But when you're by yourself in the backcountry, hiking around in the dark, do you get freaked out at all? How do you navigate through like the deadfalls and everything?
For me, I've been lost a couple times. Once in the big woods of Canada, bear hunting, and once hunting some public ground down around Athens, Ohio, which you've hunted down there, and it's some big wood stuff. So I know what it feels like to be lost. So I really try, if I know I'm going to be walking back in the dark, or I'm going to be walking out to a vantage point in the morning in the dark, I really try to put together a really, really, really good game plan of how I'm going to get there, how I'm going to navigate, what I'm going to use for landmarks, that kind of thing. With that being said, there's always that eerie factor because, like I said, it's the unknowns you don't know about. So to answer the question, in my opinion, anybody who says they navigate the wilderness or the backcountry in the dark and they don't have any sense of urgency or a little bit of fear or shock value, I'll be honest, I'd stand right beside you and say you're full of shit, because you do. I mean, you don't know. I mean, I'm going to hunt Idaho for the first time this year, 2 weeks, elk and muleys. And in Idaho, you've got bears, wolves, lions. So
Hippos. Raccoons.
There have been a couple. They've got chipmunks with terrible tempers. So there's a lot of things that in your mind, not that I'm worried about being attacked, but it's just, what if you encounter these things, like just that shock value situation. So, or
even being cliffed out.
You
can't see that kind of shit. And when you're moving around, it's messed up, you know?
You honestly just don't know. So, I'm sure you gathered this right off the bat from talking to me way back a year ago. I like to have a good time and joke around, but I'm very black and white, to the point. I mean, I don't like to sugarcoat or bullshit anybody, because I just don't think that's cool to do. I think if people ask you something, you need to be honest. And to be honest, when guys say, "Oh no, I'm never nervous about walking around in the dark," or what, bullshit. I mean,
yeah,
there's, as people and as human beings, dark has always been associated with a time that we don't inhabit very often. We're not creatures of the dark, whereas everything that's out there in Idaho, in Montana, in Colorado, in Utah, in blah, 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 those are all creatures of the night. So you're inside their world more so in the dark than you are.
It's like being in the ocean. It's you're in the fish's world, the shark's world there. It's not your habitat.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it's hard for me to sit and be like, "Oh yeah, I understand when Joe Blow says he's never afraid to walk around 12 miles back in the wilderness by himself." Nah, I'm sorry, but I know a lot of really good bow hunters and a lot of really good hunters that have hunted the West their whole lives, and they still will tell you that they get a little bit antsy when they got to walk through grizzly country 2 hours after dark on their way back to their truck. I mean, that's just, it just is what it is. But there again, though, for me, that's also a sense of adventure, and it's a sense of unknown. And it's one of those deals where, as much as I get nervous about it, I also love it, because I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm a thrill seeker, adrenaline junkie, whatever you want to call it, a dumbass, whatever you want to call it.
It does give you a sense of fired up. Like if you have that weird, like I think you and I have that weird little thing in our brain that ticks back and forth that isn't supposed to do that. But I know, for example, there's this one, I call it a valley. I don't know what the hell they call it out there, but like this one drainage, I guess, where I got it. There was a big bull in there, an old bull, and he was with a bunch of cows, and 2 days in a row he was heading up from the bottom, heading up to his bedding area in this thick, like, north facing slope that was right on the bottom side of a cliff. So he's really hard to get to, and he'd always go through this one area in the dark, and he was almost, at his bed by the time it was light out. So I was like, well, shit, I'm going to have to go down into this valley with nothing but blowdowns, and it's just dark timber stuff. And if you've never experienced dark timber in a place like Colorado or the West, it's thick as shit, and you can't see in front of you much in the daylight, bar being that at night. So I'd try to, drop down in there, and I tripped a couple times on some of those deadfall, and I'm lucky I didn't get stabbed by some of the branches. So you need to be smart with it, but it does get you, fired up, and it did put me in place to, have some encounters where I should have killed, that bull. I had the opportunities, but just my inexperience in the backcountry and with shooting elk, made that not happen. But, nonetheless, you're lying to yourself if you say you don't get kind of nervous or kind of freaked out about it, because you're just, like you said, we sleep during the night and we're awake during the day. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%.
But anyways, Clint, so we're going here well over an hour, almost into an hour and a half here. What do you have anything else you want to leave the guests with here? And before you even answer that question, you and I will be having quite a few more discussions here coming up, and you'll be a pretty regular, voice on the podcast, since you and I are doing a lot of similar things and have some valuable information. I think that one, you can learn from 98% of our mistakes, and the couple percent that we've done something that's worth listening to. But anyways, Clint, do you have anything you want to add here?
I mean, I would just say that, I'm really excited to see where this is all going to go. I'm pumped for you, and I'm pumped to have a kind of a piece of the pie. I guess you could say, with, I plan on doing a lot of blog work for you and getting in on the podcast. And it's going to be a fun and exciting journey. By no means are we professionals. There's not a whole lot of Western game that's been actually killed between the two of us. I mean,
it's all been by you.
we always joke around about, man, maybe people think because of the way we talk, we've killed like 20 elk and 30 muleys, and really, like, we got a mountain lion, an elk, a bear, and an antelope, and a bunch of whitetails that no one out west really cares about. So it's fun to. It's fun to joke, but no, I mean, we both have put the time in, and we're climbing the ladder of the hard knocks of Western hunting, and it's going to pay off. And
it's a learning process, man, and you gotta put the time in and just try it. Otherwise, you won't get anywhere.
I mean, it's like going through two-a-days. I mean, if you want to get into the big leagues and you want to make it to the Super Bowl, you got to go through the two-a-days. You got to go through the Sunday practices. You got to go through the games and the playoffs, and then you finally get to the big stage. And it's like, I expect us both to have really, really big years. I got, an elk and a muley tag in Idaho. I got a Montana.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. I mean, I don't want people to think that because you got this whole deal going, and because I'm contributing to this and a bunch of other different places, and the same with you on the writing, that there's no pressure. I mean, realistically, as long as I kill a cottontail rabbit somewhere in the States and then maybe shoot a whitetail here in Ohio, I mean, basically that's good enough. I mean, and whoever doesn't think that that's not good enough, I mean, I guess you can kick rocks. I mean, I don't really know what to tell you, so it's, yeah, but no, I just, I want people to take away, some laughs and laugh at these conversations but also come away with, we're being real and being realistic. And these are all experiences that we've experienced as what I would say rookie Western hunters, coming from the East, going West. And I mean, this is all real. I mean, we're not sugarcoating it. This is really what happens. I mean, we've went out West, and like I said, we have unfilled way more tags than we've filled at this point. And that's okay, because we've both taken away so much knowledge and gained so much from those experiences that, it's nice to share them with you guys. Because don't get me wrong, I mean, it'd be awesome for me to be like, oh yeah, I've killed 3 giant muleys with my bow the last 3 years. And you could be like, oh, okay, well, on every other podcast in America, there's some guy on there that's killed 100 freaking mule deer. But with me and with you, Bo, people are kind of getting a different spin. You're kind of getting a spin from the guys that haven't killed a lot, but they're trying, and we're, I think I can speak for both of us. Our main focus with this podcast is to really express and connect with the guys that are just getting into this game, or they live in New Jersey and they're going to travel to Colorado this year for their first time, and they don't know what to expect, and they've never done it. And that's what gets me excited. Is it's, there'd be a lot of veteran bow hunters out West that would listen to you and I talk and be like, oh man, I remember being these two. Like, I remember being young and not really knowing what I was doing, but figuring it out as I go. But then the flip side, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like, man, I never thought about that. Like, these two idiots honestly are hitting on stuff I've never actually thought about, and I need to think about before I go out West this fall, before I go chase elk in Montana or antelope in Colorado or whatever you guys are all going to do. I mean, I hope you're all going to go somewhere this fall, but I just want people to take away from the conversation and some of the blog posts that I'm going to do for you. And, it's not about what I'm killing or what we're killing, but it's about what to expect and our trial and error experiences, and just, what to expect and kind of to help you through those hard knock years of Western hunting. And I mean, hopefully everyone takes away something from these conversations we have. And I mean, I know you've already got some good blog posts up, and I'm sure you got some good ones lined up, and me and you got some good ideas for some stuff I'm working on for you. So I'm just, like I said, I'm excited, and I'm really thankful to be a part of it all, and pumped to see what the year has in store for both of us. And I mean, like I said, hopefully we're punching some tags here this fall, and but if not, hey, we'll have fun.
We'll still drink some beer together and call it a day. But
yeah.
before anything else here, I have a question, Clint, that I'm going to ask you on the air, so that you have to answer it to me and you can't defer the question. I had an idea for some hunts this fall. So basically, you and I, we swap in the whitetail woods, and I'll hunt your 2,000 acres, and I'll show you, 2 million acres in northern Pennsylvania land that you're welcome to hunt. Like, it's, prime, private, public land. It's only going to be you. There's ton of, stuff going on there. So I was thinking that we could just, swap, to be able to talk about each other's experiences.
I think it'd be a good idea. And I've hunted PA. I've actually killed 2 pretty decent bucks in PA, one on public and one on private. And, none of them were in the gigantic woodlots you hunt. They were more in, northeastern Pennsylvania, or northwestern Pennsylvania. But nonetheless, no, that would be fun to combine hunts and hunt together, just because it is different worlds. And
I'm just messing with you, though. I just as far as getting on your properties, but
I understand that you're not only trying to move in on my fame and fortune, but now you're trying to move in on my whitetail, so it's fine.
Oh, I was thinking, I could just probably just stay at your house and, everything else.
Maybe my old lady can rub your back, put icy hot on your thighs. I don't know. I mean,
I was thinking maybe dinner and a movie, Netflix and chill. Netflix and chill. I don't know. All right, we took it to another level. Clint, so where can everyone find a little bit of your adventures and what you got going on social media or some of your blog work, magazine work? Where can we find more of you?
Yeah, on Facebook, just Clint Casper, both with C, Cilnt, Casper. Instagram, I'm Casper Clint, all one word, last name, first name together. Do a lot of freelance work for deer and deer hunting, turkey and turkey hunting online, Peterson's bow hunting. Me and you both do a lot of work with our good buddy Christian Berg over there at Peterson's bow hunting. Hell of a fun guy to hunt with. Got to share a turkey camp with him this year. I know you might be sharing a deer camp with him. Got to watch his boy Timmy. Timmy's the man. He's a up and coming badass. I got to watch him kill his first tom this year here in Ohio with me, so that was cool. You and I both write for the Journal of Mountain Hunting. Awesome publication. I do some work in bow hunter from time to time, and do quite a bit of podcasting with Working Class Bow Hunter. I run their blog. Do all the blog work for them. Me and Kurt work hand in hand on that. He does a really good job of putting it all together. I do the writing, and he kind of gets it up and running on the website and stuff. Yeah, I do quite a bit of work with Kurt Geyer over there at Working Class Bow Hunter. He puts the blog together, and I write them all for him, and me and him work hand in hand, and fun to work with those guys. Eastman's Elevated. Do a lot of work with Brian, from time to time. I put some stuff into Eastman's hunting journals, mainly the Bow Hunting Journal. And Archery Maniacs and East Meets West, just got going with you, and looking forward to what the future holds there and whatnot. So, yeah, you can look me up on any of those platforms. And like I said, I'm kind of a freelance guy. I don't really have a home every month per se. I just kind of float around and kind of write for whoever's in need, and just gonna roll with that for a while until you decide that you're gonna pay me X amount of dollars per month to do all your stuff for you. So until that happens, I'm just gonna keep freelancing.
Yeah, so Clint, actually I was just gonna bring it up to you again. Might as well bring it up on the air. You're going to start getting paid between $10,000 and $15,000 per month to write from my online journal, because it's so popular at the moment. But no, I really do appreciate everything you've been doing for me, and some of the articles you're coming out with that are going to be released on the East Meets West Hunt Journal are just they're unbelievable. So I'm excited for that to happen, and see what's coming up next. And I'm sure you and I will be talking a lot more coming up here in the near future. I'm excited for it.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of East Meets West Hunt with your host, Bo Martonic. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit eastmeetswesthunt.com, Facebook at East Meets West Outdoors, and Instagram at East Meets West Hunt. If you enjoyed today's episode, please review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.